Chaparal. Big old fifth wheel. What we're doing now is protecting all the awnings. We do all that, and then we're going to start ripping her up. Hopefully we won't have a big old hot mess on this one. We have had so many coaches in here that have been rebuilds, and people don't know it. So you can see here, this is a put more on, more on. That should be their slogan. I think I'll call Dicor. Say, hey, I got a slogan for you. And I wonder why they just don't want to sponsor us. But see how that's just like a butyl. That's all that is. So what happens when the sun starts to, get the camera right, when the sun sits on it, it'll start causing these little fractures on this, and then it'll start compromising even the butyl underneath it. Some of it has like an acrylic coating on it, but that's why you have to keep slobbering more on. They know it doesn't work. They know it. So I mean, don't waste your time doing it. This Dicor, if this is Dicor, but Dicor in itself is made by Carlisle Syntec, which is a great company. But Carlisle, again, they make commercial grade roof systems, even EPDM rubber. They have a lap sealant for it, but Dicor doesn't want to spend the money for it. So evidently, that's what I'm guessing. But this seems like it's pretty stuck. But all this is just one of those cement joiner tools. If you go over to Home Depot, you'll see it over there in the concrete section and the cement section. And all it is when you do block, it's just used to strike it after you put your cement in there. It's used to just strike it down. And all I did is that this came square. I just made it round. That's all. Because I mean, you're trying to check it, but you don't want to add more damage to it. So that's a pretty good little tool to use. And you can go around and check everything like that. On the edge, you can check around your windows. You definitely need to check around your windows. If that thing drops in there, then you got. If you can fit that little blade in there, you get water in there. But it's a good way to check everything. So you can see we got some more protection going on here. That's one of the first things we do is protect the coach. Even right there, you can see we got to protect in the door. We're going to go inside. We'll throw protection on them. I've got a whole bunch of those moving pads, whole bunches. So, but this looks like a straightforward type of. I'm hoping it is. There wasn't any other major issues that he knew of. I think let's see how I find out what happened. I think there was a rip up here. Yeah, there it is right there. There was a rip up here, and he just taped it up. He said that held for a while. So, but here's some more of your great Dicor. Like I said, it's just terrible stuff. If you got to keep layering it like that, that there's something wrong with the system. You should not have to keep going over and reapplying caulking every 3 to 4 months. The only thing I can come up with is that it's probably more formulated as an interior caulk, even though they're using it for exterior, because interior caulk isn't going to have properties built into it to kind of fight off UV light and and that type of thing. So that would be my only guess, and that's all it is, just a guess. But because I don't know how it's formulated. But if it's failing, there's something breaking it down, right? So, but anyhow, you shouldn't have to keep slobbering it down. This is, if you were to get on Google, Brave, DuckDuckGo, whatever, and punch in commercial roof images, you'd see the plumbing in a boot with the pipe coming up and all sealed, and you'd see the boot heat welded, or if it's rubber, they make now pressure sensitive adhesives and all this other stuff. But my point is that it would be flashed out, and then you'd see the lap sealant around that, very similar, but it would be a much better application than this, for sure. But we don't do rubber. Rubber is, to me, is a starter roof. That's all it is. It's just a starter roof. They are not, they shrink, they oxidize terribly, and when they oxidize, they streak your coach. It makes a mess. So you can see the same over here. See, like I said, someone already put some here. We're going to be putting on a new lens, and then if you look at your coach, a lot of times you'll have condensation on here. You're going to get that. If it's getting cold out, you're going to see, and then when the sun comes up, you're going to see that frost or that condensation, again, is going to liquefy, and then it'll start drooling off. But on the inside of this, there's condensation. It's just not on the outside, it's on both sides. And what happens is it'll drool down, and then it'll get into the ceiling, and it'll wick back. And a lot of times you'll think, hey, I got a leak. It's really not a leak, it's a condensation issue. It's a manufacturer's defect. If this was a double walled with a vacuum on it, that would solve the problem, but no one's going to do all that. I've tried to order double walls that they claim or don't. I say, oh, okay, what are you using in there? Is it, you know, like nitrogen? What do you vacuum it out? What's the deal? Oh no, it's just one lens inside the other. I said, well, what good is that going to do? It doesn't do any good. You're still going to have the same problem. Unless there's a vacuum to stop the thermal transaction, then it won't matter. So what we're going to do is put a fan over here, maybe, wherever. We'll pick a side. We'll put a fan and an exhaust, and it'll be a solar fan. And what it'll do, you know, it'll be inside here. We'll put a trough in there, so it'll pull the air up, and it'll just dry it out when the sun comes up. And it has to be in the sun, the solar fan does. But that's about us, and a couple more patches right there. So that's what I'm hoping, that we're going to be good with all that. I'm looking at some over here. Let's see what we got. I mean, everything looks, so far, obviously I don't like the way it's been caulked and everything, but that's just the way it is. Now you can see, like right here, when we go to take this apart, I'm not going to put on here. Let's see how much caulking is on there. That's a lot of caulking. Let's see. I'm not going to put 1.5 inches of caulking on there. That's crazy. So we just put a couple of strikes on each side, and they're probably about 3/8, you know, at best ½ inch. So you may see some of this when we peel that up. You may see the original color underneath there. Not much I can do about that. So obviously we'll get the air conditioner, and we'll get the that'll be up on a curb, and we'll have all the stands in the back. You know, if you've seen the other videos before this one, you know what I'm talking about. So as you look at your roof, you want to look along the edge here. A lot of times I don't put any protection on here, and what happens is when the coach flexes, when it flexes, then the wood right there starts to chafe it, and it makes these little slits and scores in them. Or if you look at your roof and you see tiny little fractures in there, I call it eggshelling. What that means, it's already reached the end of its life. Okay, see, that's just tape. That's all it is. It's just Gorilla Tape or duct tape of some sort, and that's not usually enough to protect that edge. So, you know, you want to go around and look right in here and see if you notice. I mean, really take your time. Maybe wipe it down with some cleaner so you can see. But if you're starting to see little fractures in there, water's going to get down in there. It'll get behind all this, and you'll end up with D-lam. It'll get wicked back into the root system. And obviously, depending on which way the thing's parked, but it will get in there. It will get in there, and it will cause some damage. It's basically a chronic leak, and that's the problem. You don't know it's leaking until you go, hey, I noticed this on my ceiling, or I noticed my siding popping out. You see, so that's what you want to look for. We don't do coatings. Coatings are just a waste of time. If you're looking at a new coach, or maybe not a new coach, a new coach to you, shall I say, to buy, and you get up there and it's got coating on it. I'd be real suspicious of it, because coatings don't work. That means they recognize the roof is failing, and they're going to put a coating on there. Most of the time, what do you think they're going to do? Put some cheap coating on there. The top layer of the coating will fracture out, and when it does, all the water will get up underneath that, and then if there is any leaks previously, it'll find its way, and you may have, you know, a split and a crack or whatever in one area, and then the leak is actually down here because it travels up underneath it. We don't do coatings. They don't work on an RV. I've never seen them work long term. I've seen some chuckleheads on YouTube. Everybody is going to claim that, hey, yeah, it works. No one's going to admit, no, but I've been doing construction for many years, going on 4 decades. So I wouldn't put one on here. If it worked, I'd do it. You know, of course I would. If I thought it would, hey, yeah, let's put it on there. The other reason why you want to take the roofing up and the decking up is because you want to see what's going on underneath here. More than likely, this is not glued down. That's something you need to have done, because all that racking and shifting and flexing, where's all that energy gonna go? It's got to go somewhere, right? It's going to go to the fasteners. Then the fasteners start loosening up, you know? So you don't want to have all that. You want to keep everything working in basically what we call in concert. I mean, everything's working together. The glue acts as a buffer to take that energy out off of the fasteners, and it keeps things tight. So that's what we're going to do, is end up ripping all this up, and we're going to be replacing it with plywood. I'm going to get rid of this OSB. I usually store it away, but hey, maybe if we find one good enough, you can use it as a shelf. But sometimes you'll also see, now that I'm getting into all this here, you may see, I'm just going to cut this open just to kind of give you an idea. There we go. Sometimes when you'll see these campers going down the road, and the roofing is puffed up, and a lot of people think there's a smooth side to OSB, and they think there's a rough side. There's no smooth side, not intentionally. It's smooth because when they press all this together at the factory, when they press it all together, the smooth side that they're claiming is smooth is they press it all together when they put all the chips and the strands when they put them together, and then that plate comes out. They mix the resin in with it, and then that resin, they don't want it to stick to that plate that's coming up to pressurize it, right? So what they do is they coat the plate with wax. So really you have wax on there, and you really shouldn't. The right way to know whether you're putting it down proper, typically there's lines on it. So if there's no lines on it, you probably need to flip it the other way, and usually there's some labels on there, and the labels typically go inside, because then when the inspector's inside looking up in there on a regular building, then he can see the stamp on there and see if that's the proper product that they wanted on there, if they had a specific design for it. But that's what all it means. It usually says ASTM and a whole bunch of other stuff, which ASTM means American Standard Testing Materials. So and they test everything to its tolerance, and then they say, okay, that's good for this, that's good for that. It has a certain like tensile strength, and it'll have a shear factor strength and all. Okay, so I'm going way off on a tangent here, I guess. But those are just some of the things you really need to know when you. This is what keeps us busy. People just don't know about compatibility. They don't know about certain things that will work, and the longevity of them, and what they were designed for. Hey, yeah, that'll work. Like silicone. They'll get up there with silicone. Put silicone on your roof. I'll tell you right now, it ain't gonna work. Silicone doesn't stick to rubber. Years ago, they used to put it on the tube. Won't stick to rubber. Okay, all of it is just that tape. So, and it looks like they got that's a radiant barrier sheathing right there. That's what they call it, a sheet. And they think that's going to reflect UV light, but typically from this aluminum, and you'll see when we take it off. I've done a lot of these, but let's see. Trying to think of the name. LTEC and Solar Board, LP Tech. They make a sheathing that has a radiant barrier like this glued to it, and it's actually glued to the bottom. But you still got to glue this all down, right? But my point is that this is not going to reflect any UV light, according to them, unless it has a 3/4 inch cavity from here to below. So if there's more than likely insulation's just right up underneath this, there's nothing there to get that buffer that they need. So that's just really worthless. So when we do it, all we're going to do is just cut it, and I'll drop it back into the bay. I got to get those trusses exposed, because that's what I got to glue to. And this isn't. I'd have to glue this down, and then I'd have to glue the sheathing to that piece. That one looks like a piece of 3/8 anyways. This right here, the sheathing, it's pretty thin. We'll be using, like I said, we'll be using 1/2 inch. But that's getting back to the silicone. So you got off track there. The silicone it won't stick to rubbers. Don't use it. I don't like silicone anyways. That being said, it's not going to stick to the rubber. They used to put it on the back of the tube, so it doesn't stick to rubber. And now they changed the word and the verbiage, because the average person doesn't know about leaching, and they don't know about how the carbon in the roofing will leach out, and that's what caused it to release anyways. But that's why they worded it, because I guess they were losing sales, and they were like, hey, let's reword this. But there's other products they say will stick to plastic, and well, how many different kinds of plastic is there? There's a lot of different kinds, so you have to know which plastic you're dealing with. And I've come across some tech data sheets that'll say it'll stick to this plastic but not that plastic, and you have to know which you're going to apply it to, or it will leak. So right here you can see, put some booger on there, and then, but if you don't, and this is open, see that little gap, water will trickle down on this wire, and if this isn't sealed either, it'll get down. There's just a hole right there. It'll go right down into your coach. And again, it'll be a chronic leak. It'll start wicking, and then when you see it, pretty soon this whole area is all just saturated. So you pull the boot up, put some product in the boot, and then squish it back down. If the product doesn't burp up this way, try to squeeze it, see if it will. If not, put another little bit of product on there, And again, this is just some of this butyl crap that I don't like. You can find, a lot of different urethane products, but that may stick in there. Maybe Lexel will work for you. Everything I use is all commercial anyway, so that's why I just look for the products that are going to work all around for everything I need as a rule. I have a whole bunch of different products, but nonetheless, that's what I use, so I don't have to worry about certain adhesives will stick to foam, some won't, a lot of them won't. So anyhow, enough about that, I guess. That's us. We're going to tear this thing off. We're going to see what it's like. We're going to see if we can just get a redeck and roof on this thing. That would be really great, because we have had a lot of projects come through here. It throws our calendar off. I'm not trying to get long-winded, but it does throw our calendar off. So if you've got a coach coming in here, please be patient with us, because we want to get it back to you correctly, 100%. And we do every single coach the same. You know, we want to make sure the quality is there. We're not a quantity type shop. We're not corporate America. I want to make sure when I do it, this thing is done correctly. And if it's not, then it'll be taken apart and done correctly if somebody in the shop isn't on board with the same vision, if you will. So you don't want to do these things twice. So if you see that one over there, that one was just a roof and a redeck, but it turned out there's a whole bunch of rot down there. There's rot on the back side. The whole corners on both sides are rotted. We sliced open the underbelly on this one over here in the next bay. We sliced open the underbelly, water just poured out. So, and this guy just thought all he needed was just a roof. So these are some of the things we run into. So what do we do? Not fix it? So, oh, okay, we'll put it all back together. You can have all that mold and all that water just standing, and literally it's not going to dry out unless you literally put a fan, open it up and put a fan on it. Don't think it's, oh yeah, it'll be all right as long as it doesn't get any more water. No, all that old water will still be there. It will be there. We've had coaches we've taken apart that may have been in our building for quite a few months, because we stay quite a few months out. Oh yeah, go get that coach and bring it in, and it's been in our other building out of the weather. We open it up and water will pour out. So, all right, well anyhow, let us get to work. I've already babbled enough, and we're gonna get this thing all set up. Okay, you can see we have got the roof deck up. And now what we do is we go along and we check, make sure, and we've already checked it, but the tape is actually pretty good on this one. Some of the other things we didn't like too much, and we found to be a problem down the road, was the wires sitting on this foam. A lot of times what it'll do is it'll just start digging into it, because it's really that flimsy. So what we did is just put some light aluminum on there, and then that's what the green tape's for. It's just to hold that in place. That's all it is. So you can see it all around there. But all the other joints and everything, they look good. And then what we look for, there's no wires coming out of the wall on this unit. They do come out of a cluster up there. These are just speaker wires, you can see. So they're over here. So what we do, there's a ferrule down in there. You can see like this one here. This is just a bushing we put in. But look at it, see how it's already starting to mar into it? It's already starting to mar into it. But we don't want that. That's a problem, because that 120 line could get breached. That's all you do is just put that in there. There's a pennies. When I say they don't want to spend one more red cent, that's it right there. We don't want to do it. So all the 120s, now this is going through there, but it's just going through the wood, so that's not a problem. But any ones that have the metal in there where it's going to chafe. The other thing I don't like, look how flimsy these are. These are the worst little gusset plates I have ever seen. They're terrible, absolutely terrible. And the problem is, it compromises, you know. I mean, this one here got split out, but there's quite a few of them that I just don't like. You can see that one's already popping loose. So what's going to hold this thing together when you walk on it, even though you got the decking on there? So we may have to try to find some better gusset plates and put them in there, or I may have to make up little blocks of wood and shove them in there. I don't know. It could be that too, just something to pin in there to give it some strength. And I'm going to go check the other side. I'm sure they're all the same. I'm sure they're all that sour. So that just goes to show you, they're going to cut corners wherever they can. The other ones are a lot stronger on other coaches, but these ones, see how that's already coming loose right there? I mean, it's, at least, you know, it's not loose, but it's not in tight. And these things, they just little barbs on them. They're not really strong enough. These ones are holding, but the other ones aren't. So we may have to do something with that. I'll have to come up with something fancy and give it some strength. So like I said, we checked all the trunk lines, we checked all that. That's why the insulation's all pulled back. So, all right, well, let us get it down the road and get some more work done. Okay, so let me show you what we got going on. I replaced this back truss completely. What we're gonna do is we're gonna bring our turn bar down on this side instead of on the roof. We're gonna end up cutting this so it'll join up nicely. But we're going to get rid of it. I like to bring it down on top of here, but I wouldn't have anything to screw to. So that's why we put that there. Besides that, all these little gussets that they had, they were all starting to split on this one anyway. So I just said the heck with it. By the time I fiddle-faddled with it and try to get maybe filler blocks in there, it was just easier to make one. And then right here, see, I don't like these. They only get them on one side, and it's causing these to collapse, and there's no strength on them. I think I showed you that. So we'll end up trimming that, of course. But what we did is put a piece of wood in there. We put a wood blocker in there. I'll show you on there. See a little. Got a piece of wood right in here. And then what we did is put gusset plates on this. What we'd want to try to do is make sure it's aligned right. That's what we're doing. So we went around all of them so far. Is what we've done. Then these just speak of wire. I just rerouted it away from there. We had it on there, but since I had to cut it, it comes out up over there and around. I just said the heck with it, and I just brought it over here. If he ever has any issue and he takes that down, well, they're the connectors. These connectors, these are pretty good. They're called Wagos. And Wagos, they just snap. That's it. And then the wire will pull right out. You can just take them right out. That's all they do. They're awesome. They're real handy. Much, much better than wire nuts. They had crimp nuts on there. I just tossed that thing away. That's all they use. Those that look like these. They use these crimp nuts. I don't use them. So that's us so far. So we're just getting it prepped up right now to get it ready for decking. And we'll pull the insulation back, get the decking on there, and we're ready to get the roof on too. So that's what we're shooting for. But everything is all, you can see, we not only did we just pin it, but we also glued it. This just happened to be black, but I think we ran out of the black and then we started using white, whatever. It's the same product, just different color. But anyhow, we got all those in there, all glued. Everything's all glued and tacked in there, so that'll be fine. That will work for us. So next thing, like I said, insulation gets set, and then once the insulation's set, decking. So I got this truss here, a big gap in there. I need some strength to carry the back end of this. If these were a little tighter, that would be awesome, but they weren't. So we put blockers in there, glued them together, and then stitched them in there so they're tight. And on the front side, it's got this aluminum truss, so when the decking comes over and everything, that'll add some strength to it. Really need to be doubled up on those ACs. So get down this other one. We did almost the same thing. It was a little different. We did the same in the back, doubled it up there, but we couldn't get in over here. So we put one in there, and then we threw the stress back over here to this truss. So anything that happens, it's got to displace this whole mess. It isn't going to happen, but it'll add a lot of strength to the front. Just this truss alone, it needs more. So that's why we put all that in there. So we basically bridged it across. So that's us. Now what we're doing is just going to take this radiant barrier. We're just going to tuck it down inside like this, tuck it down, and then we're going to glue our truss, and we're going to put our decking on. This is plywood. I don't usually use OSB. It's very rare. You may see a few videos that I've done OSB, but that could be because the span of some coaches are actually almost like 100 inches wide, and the plywood's only 96. But you can get OSB at 104 inches in length. So that's why I would use it there. Or if for some strange reason, like there was a stock shortage of something, a lumber shortage or whatever, and I just could not get plywood. Otherwise, I really lean to the plywood. Not an OSB fan. Not your typical OSB. There's some that I like. Advantech is awesome. That is a really, really good product. But as a rule, most of them are just your generic run-off-the-mill type thing for sheathing. So, all right, let us get putting this decking down. We've got the passenger side all glued. Working on my gestures. Got it all glued, so we're going to roll it. You can see all the strips we put in, and then we also put an aluminum edge on here instead, and it's got a nice roll to it, keep the roof nice and tight. So we got that. You can see all the protective buffer strips and everything. So we're ready to rock and roll and get this thing down. We're done with our Chaparal. So we got our RVRI logo on here with the month and the year. We do that just so we can see how the roof is doing, and if anybody wants to sell his coach, if the customer decides to sell the coach, then he doesn't have to worry about someone trying to talk him down and saying, oh yeah, these RV roofs, they all have troubles. I'm gonna have to put a new one on, yada yada yada. You can say, hey, I just put that on. So everything that you see, all the caulking, that all has 2 strikes on it. And this, we put a new insert trim. This one snaps in. I'm gonna see if I find a piece. I usually have a piece kicking around, and then when I go to look for it, it's not there anymore. We got the 2 stands on the back. That just gives the air conditioner some balance on there. You can tell we got the boots over here all welded in. Those are all welded. Everything's all welded. There's no cement and glue or whatever in that aspect, that we don't glue them down. They're all welded. So, and again, those all they do is just give it balance, because it's sitting on top of the curb. And then there's a piece of foam up underneath that protects. That's the only thing the RV industry uses, is a piece of foam. So my concern is that when the water comes down this way from the rain and whatnot, that in these traveling especially, that all that water is going to get pushed back into that piece of foam, and possibly, over time could probably relate to a leak. So we put another piece of counter flash that goes over the counter flash on the curb. So there's a flange on the top, which is called counter flash. So when this comes down, it goes below it and then it washes it out. And then you've got all these slots and holes and everything on the sides, on both sides of the unit, and also there's a little corrugation. You're not going to have issues with water trying to go in that way. It's just usually jamming this way. So as you can see, we got everything done. Like I said, everything's got 2 strikes all along it, so we're all good with that. And again, and I'll show you all this mess here. I'll explain all that. So we brought the roofing up here, and if you look way down here, this kind of almost levels off. It doesn't really have a sharp camber to it, but as you start coming up towards the center, then the camber is getting more aggressive. So what we did is welded the 2 sheets together right here. We had to do the same to the front as well, because it just did not like it. There's probably a little burp up there, and what I did up there, that's wanted to burp on me. If we have to, I mean, we'll monitor that when it comes back in, but it's got a little bit of crookedy-fy in there. And then, like I said, we welded that piece on there. All I did was take it and fold it and flip it, and I welded it. But then I wanted to try to dress it out a little bit. But sometimes, like, this is a structured membrane, and structured membranes are not like the cheap RV roofs. They're so much better, but it's got its own parameters as well. The cheap stuff, you're just going to flop on here, and then it'll lay, but it'll rip. So if you look at some of these curves, you can see, like, right around the edge, how it's kind of looks a little discolored. That's how much penetration of heat we got in there. So you can tell we got the counter flash here, same thing with that. So this is a piece of counter flash I'm talking about, and it's on all the curves, even on this little one here. And then when go back over here, when the water comes down, it'll hit there, the front black piece, and then it'll go underneath the counter flash, and it'll wash out. All right, so let me explain what all this is. This is an exhaust fan. Typically what we've been noticing is that we're getting condensation on, when you get it on the top of the lens, it's also on the bottom of the lens. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. Even on your house, if you had a shingled roof, a lot of times you have to put down a base of some sort prior to putting the shingles down, and it'll either be a synthetic underlayment or it may be tar paper, and that's to prevent dry rot from the outside back in. And the same principle applies with anything. You get condensation on your windshield of your car, you're going to have it on the inside as well. So same theory with this, but what happens is it starts weeping when the sun comes up. It will evaporate all of that condensation off the top, but on the underside, on the inside, it can't do anything. It'll soften it up for sure, make it more liquefied, if you will, instead of being frosty. And then what it does is it'll find its way down like this, and it'll drool down inside, and it'll hit the inner lens. When it hits the inner lens, there's a flange, and then the ceiling will wick it up, and it'll show up as a leak. And it's not a roof leak, it's a condensation issue. So my best invention here, I guess, I don't know if you can see, there's a slot over there that we made. So I've got a piece of ductwork that runs over that way. And then over here, this one as well, you can see some of the silver. It runs back over this way. This is your intake. This is an intake, that's all it is. And you pop that off, and then I got this piece of foam in here, just so we don't get any wasps or anything in there. But what happens is when the sun does come up, and I recommend parking this in the sun, when the sun comes up to evaporate this off, that fan will kick on. That's a solar fan. And what it will do is it'll draw the air up and over and just keep going. It'll keep running until, I guess, the sun goes down, right? The sun gets off it. But it'll keep a constant flow of air to keep any of that moisture out of there, you know, from the condensation. So that's what that's all about. And I get it back on here. So if you do notice this popped off, you would want to get that replaced for sure, because if it leaks, it's going to leak back inside there. So, but these are on pretty sturdy. But just monitor that. Bell caps are for the plumbing over there, and you can see again we heat welded all around the vent on this side, that curb. Same with the antenna. So everything's all together. So what's all this mess down here? Let me tell you. First off, the roof system is a 60 mil. This is a commercial grade TPO. This is the same product you're going to see on a hotel office building, a library, you know, on a commercial building. You're going to see the same exact product. So when you heat weld all these together, this particular tool right here, this is essentially known as a inspection tool or a probe, but it's to inspect to make sure all the welds are good. And I leave them with everybody just as a prudent measure. I err on the side of caution all the time. You know, I know these roofs are doing great, but still, you want to inspect them. Don't take it for granted. You take it for granted, then that's when you're going to have some issues. And you're just going to think, hey, everything's okay, but something could hit the roof, something, you know, it happens. There could be impurities in there. Right now they're doing good, and then, hey, maybe there's a little issue that needs to be attended to. That's why we like to see these coaches come back. We want them to come back 30 days, maybe 60, but I like to give people some time to bring them back so we can check all the caulking, check all the welds. We want to check everything. It's too expensive to do these twice. So then after that, you come back once a year. We can show people how to do an inspection, just, you know, in case they notice something, of course, and that's what I'm going to go over right now. But we do like to see them come back. So keep that in mind. We don't want anybody saying, hey, I got a leak, I got this and that. And you go, yeah, you know, all you had to do is put a little lick of caulking here, or we could have, you know, just did something to stave it off till we got the repair if need be, right? So anyhow, let's show you how this works. All you do is just drag this along, and that's how you check to see if the welds are good. It's that simple. So we'll say this thing just burped in there a little bit. If it did, it's okay. Then when you go to open it, you can just kind of wiggle it like this way. You want to go up, not this way, because you'll poke a hole in it. You want to go this way, and you open that up. Oh, so now it's opened up. You take some acetone or take some denatured. You got to get some solvent to clean it out. You're going to clean up underneath there. And once you do that, you're going to need to prime it. Nothing will stick to this roof system unless you prime it. So here's some primer. So I also got a brush. You just take a little of that, put it up underneath, and I even leave with some product. This happens to be Duralink 35 by Chemlink. You just put a little squirt in there, and that's good. You're done. That's the end of it. If you had a hole in the roof, let's say you had a rip in the roof, had something come down and punctured a tree branch or something, if you can get the nozzle up underneath there, if you can, then what you want to do is you kind of go in a circle motion up underneath there. Even if you had to take your little checker tool and open it up a little bit, if you had to get up underneath there to accommodate for the nozzle, do that and then squeeze it back. That'll be fine. And then you can, this product is moisture cured, so it's going to cure out, you know, even if it's wet out. So even if it's raining, if you want to get up here and check that, boom, that would be the end of that problem. So at least temporarily. If you needed to put a patch on it right afterwards, you say, all right, we did that. Hey, it's prudent to put a patch on. You're going to get your patch here. This is just roof tape. That's all it is. They make all different brands. I don't think there's actual Eternabond, but they make all different brands. So basically, this is a TPO, or it could be a PVC coating on top here. And they're really close in similarity of who they are, meaning TPO and PVC. So sometimes you're working on it, you wouldn't really know unless you set it on the package. Now this is a butyl. So when the sun hits this butyl right here, it will start to cause this tape to come loose. And that's what I'm going to show you how to prevent that. So here's our make-believe hole in the roof that we filled with the caulking, right? Squirted it around. We got that. Now you're going to put the patch on. When you put the patch on, try to center it right there where your leak is. You can leave it with a pen. You're going to go around the perimeter here and trace that. Once you trace the pen, once you trace with the pen, and you're going to take this here, pull the film. There's a film on the back. You're going to put it on there and just make it nice and smooth over that patch. Once you get that on there, let me back up a little bit. Once you have your pen mark in there, once you have your pen mark that we did around there, the perimeter, you're going to take your primer and you're going to prime all inside that square. Wherever the square was, you're going to prime all that. Once you get that all primed, then you're going to go with the patch. And obviously once it's cured too, you'll know it's dry. You take that, peel the backing off, make this nice and smooth. You're going to come back with your primer and you're going to just go a little bit on the edge of the patch. You're going to go a little bit on the edge of the patch like this. Once you get that on there, now you have a little bit out here as well. You want it to be about 3/8 of an inch more on each, the 4 sides. You can come back a little bit on there, right? Once you get that all done and it dries, come back with your caulking, you're going to put a lick around there. Just like that. Once you put a little lick on there, get your caulking on there, you can smooth it out with your finger if you want to. But the whole purpose of putting the caulking around here is, again, the sun, the UV light from the sun will cause the butyl to work loose. So it has to be, you're using the caulking basically as a protective barrier against the UV light. That's all you're doing. So we'll say it's really bad or something and you need a patch. These are patches that I have. Actually, they're just remnants from when I made that solar fan, and they'll work just fine. And you can heat weld that right on there. Now I leave these because if you're somewhere else, you can't make it back to. If you make it back to us, we'll do it for free. If you're out and about and you have to get connected with somebody, maybe even a commercial contractor that can actually heat weld it on there. There are so many different brands, they are not compatible. This is Carlisle. It's not compatible with GAF. Now, Carlisle does make a couple other different brands. Versico, for instance, they make that. They make mule hide. Those are compatible with this. But you're not going to put Firestone on here. You're not going to put GAF on here. Those are not compatible. So then you can heat weld this whole patch on there. Obviously, you would have to take this patch off, and then you clean it up and you heat weld it. So I just like people to have everything that they need. This is a sample of what the roofing is a 60 mil commercial grade. You can see all the squares in there. That's a reinforced membrane. That's what they consider reinforced or structured membrane. So we threw that in there. There's some pens in there. And then in the pens actually, see if I can do this. I'll put the camera down for a minute. See if I can show you how this will work. These are the pens. There's a little piece on here, little aluminum piece, and all you do is just pull it out, and there's all our information right there. So if you need to get in touch with us, you got it all right there. There's our email address, and then there's our phone number if you need to get in touch with us. Okay, so we don't quote on social media. Some people watch the videos and they say, hey, how much is this or that? They're all different. So you know, you need to give us a call if you have any questions. And let's see, what else did I not cover? Washing and maintenance. Simple dish soap. Get up here and scrub it down, and you can pressure wash this. It'll be fine. You can actually put a pressure washer on here, as long as it's not the pencil tip, and as long as you're not like driving right into it. You can use like a 15-degree angle on it. Maybe they have different angles on there on the tips, and stay, you know, probably about 10-12 inches away, and you can wash and it'll come back bright. It'll come back real bright and clean. So we also left with some key tags. Got a little carabiner on there. A little carabiner. There's a leather piece on here. Pretty actually heavy duty and really strong. So we put all that in this care package, and this is what folks get when we're done with the roof. So, and this is why I like to go over it in the video, because we make these videos mainly for, you know, the customer, but I know other folks watch them. But we want the customer to watch the video so he can understand how to take care of it, how to patch the roof, and so forth. Although we do go over it with them before they leave. So these are just a couple of magnets. These are a couple of magnets that we have. You can put them on probably your oven hood or something if you had that. Obviously something steel. It's not going to stick to stainless steel if you have a stainless steel refrigerator. But all that goes in there, and that's us. And we want to thank the customer for bringing this in for us to do it. And you can see, even though this was a fairly easy roof to do, we still had some issues with the trusses. We had some issues with a couple of things. And we want to get those all corrected before we put the roof on. And some people ask us how long it's going to take. I don't know until I open a roof up, and I don't know how long it's going to take to get the next one in. So we have a board. I call it a board. It's not a calendar. So if you're interested in bringing your coach in, just understand we do stay months out. But you know, you need to get on the board if you're interested in doing that. But how soon I can get to it, we don't give actual dates when we're going to start, and we don't give dates when we're going to be completed, because again, I don't know what we're going to run into. So we've got one over here in this other bay, and that one's going to be a hot mess. That's a Class C that's been leaking for a while. It's got a fiberglass roof. How long is it going to take to fix it? I don't know, not until we get the roof off. So it's hard for us to just pinpoint, yeah, we can get you in on this day and get you done, because everything always seems to go awry. We did post another fifth wheel just recently, and that one there turned into a hot mess. The squirrels got in it and destroyed everything. It was delamination. We had just a slide out, a whole bunch of stuff we had to do to that. So it throws our you know, the calendar dates, it throws them up. That's why we don't use them anymore. We don't use a date, just to let folks know. But again, we want to thank them for bringing this in, and then we look forward to doing the inspections with them and getting everything done. So we appreciate y'all watching. If you like the video, sure, hit a like up. And then I guess what that does is it helps the algorithms recognize a video or something. As you can see, we don't put a lot in the description. It takes a lot for us to do the videos in itself. If you've ever done any, to take them and then try to edit them, you know, which I don't. We just take all the clips that you see that I take with the camera, and we just put them all on there, and then because we don't have time to do all that. And all we do is put a transition in there. We select all. Every clip has a transition, and we just put the name of it up there. That's about as easy peasy as we can do, because we really don't have the time to keep trying to make a fancy dancy video. We don't have a fancy dancy intro. We're trying to give you meat and potatoes and information. That's what my goal is. So, well, again, we appreciate you watching. You got any questions, you got the number that I showed you, and you got the email as well. Thank you for watching. Let's see, we got all the coaches that come out with a care package. This is our care package right here. See if I can zoom this in. We got a license plate right here if he wants to put that on. We've got, this is a piece of patch. It's an emergency patch in case he got a tree branch to come down and if he had to patch it. Now this is a hot patch. This is the one that we would use much like this one around here. It's just the same material, but so that would have to be welded in. However, in an emergency, if you had a hole, and we'll say whatever right here, if you saw it in there, you take this and shove it in that hole, and you go squirt, 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 squirt all around in a circle like that, and load it. Then you squeeze it, it'll bubble up. That's done. This is a moist secured product. That's what we use. We use all Chemlink products. This is Durlink. That's what we use. So that'll seal it. But then we also left a couple of patches. So the way you want to do your patching, put that there so don't roll away. The way you want to do your patching, and we left a couple in here, is you would center it over your hole. Once you get it centered, take a pen and outline this. You want to outline it with a pen. Now you got that, just set that aside. And we left, there's a little bit of primer right here. You're going to need that primer. And I might as well empty everything out of this thing. Here's a brush. So now you want to go beyond the ink line. You want to go beyond that, maybe 3/8 of an inch or so. So you're going to be doing this on your ink line. Then you want to do the whole thing here. So you got all the inside the ink line, and then about 3/8 over the ink line. You're going to take your patch, You're gonna peel the back. This film will peel right off, and you line it up, and I usually reach up underneath, and then I take my other hand and I kind of pull it this way, it keeps it nice and smooth. Now you've got your ink line there, you got your primer out here, you take your brush again and go over this. Just like that, okay? Go over here. Because it won't bond to this. That's the purpose of the primer. Nothing's gonna bond to the TPO unless it's primed. So once you get that, then you come back with your product and you can put some caulking around there. And that's gonna be a pretty darn good Band-Aid. Now, if the customer really feels he needs to have a hot patch put on it, that's why we left this. We don't want someone to just go to if he can't come back here, we do them for free. If he can't make it here and he's somewhere else, he's like, yeah, that really needs to be put on there, you cannot interchange these materials. So some people think you can take, this is a Carlisle membrane right here. Now Carlisle does make a couple other products, but it has to be the same Carlisle product. But you couldn't take, for instance, GAF and put it on there. You couldn't take Genflex and put it on there. You can't do that. They're two totally different companies and they're two totally different products. I mean, they're still TPO, but it's kind of like Ford and Chevy. Yeah, they're both a car, they're both a truck, but they're not compatible. You're not swapping parts on them. So it may seem like it'll weld on there. And I've had people at supply houses tell me, oh yeah, we don't have any of that, but you can use this. You can't. There's enough chemical imbalance in each product where they're not compatible. So that's why we put that in there, just in case. So you got the primer, you got that, you got the brush, you got some caulking. And then the caulking, we like to see these come back in 30 days, okay? 30 to 60 days for an initial inspection. After that, it's annual. Now, if the customer says, well, I want to inspect it myself, we want them to go along, put a little friction on here to get it warmed up, and then this is going to stay tight anyways. But in the event he found something, hey, it looks a little loose or whatever, you can put a little bit more primer on there, and you can use that to just give it a little love, especially around the corners. You can go around the corners and everything like that if you had to. So that's why we put all that in there. Let's see, we got a magnet for maybe on your hood of your stove. Got a couple of pens here. Got a fancy dancy key tag with a beverage opener. We can't say beer, it's a beverage. So this is a checker tool. So this is used to check the joint, the welds. You go along like this, and if it pops in there and you find a little hole, we'll say there was a tiny bit, if you did, that's what you check for, and these things are gonna move a little bit. So if you did, then again, you can take the primer, take a little brush, put it all in there, take the caulking, and you're done. Okay, that'll hold it so we can get a look at it and make sure everything's all set. But like I said, that's what we like to see. It come back in about 30 days. I like to see them, but 60, all right. But I still want them inspected because I don't want to have a little tiny problem turn into a big problem and then an upset customer. So we got all of that there, and let's see what else we got here. Here is a sample of our product. This is a 60 mil commercial grade. And if you look real hard enough, you could probably see the little, see if I get the angle of this light in here from the shot. You can see these little squares. There's a mesh built into this, which gives it its strength. So that's where it'll resist hail damage. It'll resist tree branches. So it's really hard to poke through this. It truly is. You'd have to have something really hard and sharp to really get it. But if you had a big enough tree branch, that could possibly happen. So we get all that. And then like I said, got another key tag and everything in here. So that's the gist of it. So all the customers, they get these here, and we got an emblem on the back. There's one of our emblems here that we put on the back, and that's about it. So we leave all this with the customer. So Mr. and Mrs. Customer, at least they have all this stuff handy in case of an emergency. So we want to make sure everything stays tight and everything. You got all the products you need, so on. So obviously, if you have any issues, there's a telephone number. 423-475-7663. Keeping all this in mind, these are not intended for DIY. I just simply don't have the time to answer all these DIY questions. And the other thing is, I don't know what you're dealing with. I don't know what you have. I don't know what products are on there. And I have guys ask me all the time, what can I use for this? What can I use for that? And I don't want to steer anybody in the wrong direction and find out, okay, well, you got silicone on your windows. What can I use to do my windows? Well, you're going to have to dig all that out. You have to dig it all out. Nothing sticks to silicone. Silicone doesn't stick to silicone. So you really got to clean all that out. And if you don't know if you have silicone, and some people don't know the difference, they can't just go up there and feel it and go, yeah, that's silicone, or it's just a urethane, or it's a terpolymer. I mean, there's a bunch of different products out in the market now, but the biggest one is being the silicone. And some products kind of simulate in a touch, so you may think it's silicone, but all that has to be, like I said, it has to be removed. But again, that's why I try not to get into advising, and I just don't want anybody to be upset, but honestly, I really don't have the time at the risk of sounding like a jerk. I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to do a good job, but you can imagine how many emails and, you know, we get from, you know, with questions, and also questions on our channel. Keeping this in mind as well, we don't quote on social media. If you want a quote on yours, you'd have to give us a call. Again, 423-475-7663. You can do that, and then you can send us an email even if you wanted to at contactus@rvroofinstall.com. So that's about it. Everything's done. I think the customer just showed up, so we're going to get him coupled up here, and he may even want to take a glance at the roof, and otherwise we're good to go. So we appreciate y'all watching. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. What that does, from what I understand from the algorithms, what it does is if somebody's looking for information on RV roofs, then, you know, this video or other videos will pop up. That's what I'm guessing. So if you want to subscribe, well, we put these up pretty often. You can go through a lot of the other videos we have. Some, I'm trying to think of some really good ones that we did that were just a hot mess. There's a Georgetown we did, I think a couple years ago. That Georgetown, we did the whole ceiling, took the whole ceiling and roof out and rebuilt that whole entire thing. There's a Montana that's up there. There's a earlier from years ago, maybe 5 years ago, there is a Siesta, and you can, that was roof we did, and the guy who did that roof put 2 roofs on, put the first one on, messed it up, put the second one on, messed it up, and you'll see that hot mess they did. They did not know what they're doing. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of guys out here on YouTube that'll say, hey, yeah, you can do this, you can do that. There's a couple of so-called experts that are out there, and I watched one of their videos, or a few of them, and I just shake my head because I know things are going to leak, and I know some of the stuff they've done, they have to have leaked, because there's just no way things go together like that. So if they're not, I don't think they mention that, but on their video, I haven't seen them mention, hey, yeah, we had a leak, we had to fix it. But you know, if we have any issues, obviously we want the customer to come back immediately, and let's stifle any leaks at all. But you know, that's like almost unheard of. And I'll be honest with you, some of the biggest problems we've had are with these skylights, with them fracturing, and that's why we do them differently. Some of these ones, like I said, they're manufacturer's defects on a lot of them. But that being said, especially if you had a cambered roof, if you had a roof that had just a little bit of a camber, that wants to lay down flat, like just a flat piece of glass. And if you just make this end tighter and that a little tighter, now it's got that little stress going on it, and it only needs a little bit of stress to crack it. So that's one reason why we don't put any screws in them anymore. So, and if they come back for inspection, we take all the screws out, and then what we'll do is just load them, because the product that we use underneath there, it's not coming up. It won't come up. If you have to replace that, you're going to have to rip up that whole entire lens, and you're going to have to. It's not coming up. So, well, anyhow, like I said, I appreciate y'all watching, and we'll see you on the next one.